I'm standing in my kitchen at 63 years old, holding two different phones, and I honestly don't know which one to answer because one call will save my marriage and the other will save my soul, and I have exactly 10 seconds to decide which version of myself I want to be for the rest of my life. My name is Eleanor, and I've been married to Thomas for 38 years. We live in a comfortable house in Portland, Oregon, the kind of place with a 2-car garage and a backyard where we used to host barbecues before we stopped talking to each other about anything that mattered. I raised 3 children in this house. I watched my hair turn gray in the bathroom mirror upstairs. I celebrated anniversaries with forced smiles and expensive dinners where we ran out of things to say before the appetizers arrived. And somewhere along the way, I disappeared. Not dramatically, not all at once, just quietly, like morning fog burning off over the Columbia River until there's nothing left but empty air. Thomas is a regional manager for a pharmaceutical company. He travels constantly, which used to bother me, and then stopped bothering me because his absence felt easier than his presence. When he's home, he sits in his recliner, scrolls through his tablet, asks what's for dinner, and treats me like part of the furniture. Reliable furniture, necessary furniture, but furniture nonetheless. I can't remember the last time he looked at me, really looked at me, the way he did when we were young, and I actually believed I was the center of someone's universe. Our children are grown now. Daniel is in Seattle with his wife and 2 kids. Rebecca just moved to Denver for her career. And Marcus, our youngest, lives in Sacramento and calls every Sunday like clockwork, asking how we're doing. And I say, fine. Because what else do you tell your son about a marriage that died so quietly, nobody noticed it stopped breathing? 3 months ago, everything changed, but it started so innocently, I didn't see it coming. Thomas left for a 2-week conference in Chicago, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was Claire, my neighbor from 2 houses down, knocking on my door the day after he left with a bottle of wine and an invitation that would unravel my entire existence. "Eleanor, you need to get out of this house," she said, standing on my porch with that determined look she gets. Claire is 58, divorced twice, and lives like she's making up for lost time. There's a community art class starting at the recreation center downtown. Painting, drawing, creative exploration. I signed us both up. I started to protest because I hadn't picked up a paintbrush since college, but Claire wasn't taking no for answer. And honestly, the house felt too big and too quiet with Thomas gone, so I agreed. If you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible in your own life, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you think you know about loyalty and desire, and what we owe to the people who stopped seeing us years ago. The recreation center sits near downtown Portland, in one of those renovated buildings that used to be something industrial and now has exposed brick and modern lighting. Our class met Tuesday and Thursday evenings, 7 to 9. There were maybe 15 people, mostly women my age or older, a few younger people, and one instructor who I noticed immediately but pretended I didn't. His name was Nathan. 49 years old, salt and pepper hair that he wore slightly too long, hands that moved with confidence when he demonstrated technique, and a way of speaking that made you feel like every word was meant specifically for you. He'd been an art teacher in San Francisco before moving to Portland to be closer to his aging parents. Divorced, no kids, and when he smiled at me during that first class while adjusting the angle of my easel, something inside me that had been dormant for decades suddenly woke up and started screaming. I told myself it was nothing. I was 63 years old, married, faithful, boring. Women like me didn't have feelings like this. But every Tuesday and Thursday, I found myself spending extra time getting ready. I wore colors instead of my usual neutrals. I actually styled my hair. And when Nathan would walk around the room, stopping at each person's canvas to offer guidance, I would hold my breath waiting for him to reach mine. "You're tentative," he said one evening, standing close enough that I could smell his cologne, something woody and warm. "You keep second-guessing every stroke. Art requires commitment, Eleanor. You have to trust yourself enough to make bold choices. Was he talking about painting? Because it felt like he was talking about everything else. The weeks passed, and Thomas remained in Chicago. His trip extended twice for reasons he explained over brief phone calls that felt like business transactions. Meanwhile, I was learning to paint, learning to see color and light differently, learning that I could create something beautiful with my own hands. And I was falling, slowly and terrifyingly, for a man who paid attention to me like I actually mattered. Claire noticed, of course. After our 4th class, she pulled me aside in the parking lot. "Nathan looks at you differently than he looks at the rest of us," she said, not judging, just observing. "And you light up when he's near you. I'm not saying that's wrong, Eleanor. I'm just saying be careful what you wish for, because sometimes we get it." If you've ever felt that pull towards something you know you shouldn't want, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, because I promise you, it gets so much more complicated than you can imagine. Thomas came home on a Wednesday, unannounced, walking through the door while I was getting ready for class. "Surprise," he said, setting down his luggage with all the enthusiasm of someone returning a library book. "Wrapped things up early. What are you all dressed up for?" I froze, guilty without having technically done anything wrong. "Art class," I managed. "I've been taking an art class with Claire." He barely looked at me. "That's nice. Is there dinner?" That's when something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a clean break, like a bone that's been weakening for years finally giving way. He'd been gone for 6 weeks, barely called, came home without warning, and his first question was about dinner. Not about me, not about how I'd been, not about what I'd been doing or thinking or feeling during his absence. "There's leftover casserole in the fridge," I said, grabbing my purse. "I'm going to be late." I drove to class with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, and when I walked in, Nathan's face brightened in a way Thomas's hadn't in years. "Eleanor, I was hoping you'd make it tonight. I have something I want to show you after class, a new technique I think you'd appreciate." The 2 hours passed in a blur of color and conversation, and when everyone else left, I stayed. Nathan set up his own canvas and showed me how to layer paint to create depth, standing behind me, guiding my hand with his, and I swear to God I couldn't breathe. Our faces were inches apart. I could feel the warmth of his body against my back. And when I turned my head slightly, our eyes met and held for a moment that stretched into eternity. "Eleanor," he said softly, and the way he said my name made me feel like a woman instead of a wife, a person instead of a function. I shouldn't say this. I've been trying not to say this. But you're extraordinary, and I don't think anyone's told you that in a very long time. I should have left. I should have run straight home to my husband and my marriage and my safe, predictable life. Instead, I whispered, "No. No one has." And then his mouth was on mine, and I was kissing him back with 38 years of hunger I didn't know I'd been carrying. We didn't sleep together that night, but we crossed every other line imaginable, and when I finally drove home at midnight, I felt alive and terrified and so desperately guilty I could barely look at myself in the rearview mirror. Thomas was already asleep in our bed, snoring softly, completely unaware that his wife had just betrayed him in every way except the most literal one. The next morning, I made breakfast, like always. Thomas ate while checking his emails. "How was your art class?" he asked, not looking up. "Fine," I said, the lie burning in my throat. It was fine, and that became my life for the next month. Dutiful wife during the day, passionate woman during class, torn completely in half by what I was doing and what I wanted and what I owed to the man I'd promised to love for better or worse, even when worse felt like slowly dying of neglect. Nathan and I started meeting outside of class. Coffee in the afternoons when Thomas was at work. Long walks along the waterfront where we talked about art and life and dreams we'd given up on. He made me laugh. He asked about my thoughts on things. He remembered details I shared, brought me books he thought I'd enjoy, sent me texts that made me smile at my phone like a teenager. "I'm falling in love with you," he told me one afternoon as we sat on a bench watching boats on the Willamette River. "I know that's complicated and probably the last thing you need to hear, but I can't keep pretending this is just friendship." My heart was pounding. "Nathan, I'm married. I have children. A whole life built with someone else." "I know," he said, taking my hand, "and I'm not asking you to blow everything up. I'm just asking if what you have with him is worth more than what we could have together. Because, Eleanor, I see you, the real you. And I think maybe you've been invisible for so long, you forgot what it feels like to be truly seen." I went home that night and tried to remember when Thomas last made me feel seen. I went through photo albums, anniversary cards, 38 years of documented history, searching for evidence that we'd ever had what Nathan and I were building. And I found it, buried in the early years, proof that we'd once been in love. But somewhere between the mortgage and the kids and the routine, we'd lost each other. Or maybe I'd lost myself, and Thomas had simply stopped looking for me. If this story is hitting too close to home, I need you to subscribe right now, because what happens next is going to make you question everything you believe about marriage and fidelity and what we're really promised when we say those vows. Thomas's travel schedule picked up again. 3 days in Denver, 4 days in Phoenix, a week in Atlanta. And during one of those trips, Nathan and I finally slept together. It happened at his apartment. After dinner and wine and hours of conversation that felt like coming home to a place I'd never been. He touched me like I was precious. He looked at me like I was beautiful. He made love to me like I was the only woman in the world who mattered. And I cried afterward. Not from guilt, but from the overwhelming realization that I'd been starving for this kind of connection for more than half my life. "Stay with me tonight," Nathan whispered, holding me close. "Just one whole night where we don't have to watch the clock." But I couldn't. I had a husband at home, even if he was sleeping in the guest room because his snoring bothered me. Even if we barely spoke anymore, even if our marriage was more business partnership than romance, I still had responsibilities. So I got dressed, kissed Nathan goodbye, and drove home through Portland's rainy streets, feeling like I'd left part of my soul in his bedroom. The affair continued for 2 months. Secret meetings, stolen moments, a double life that exhausted me and exhilarated me in equal measure. Claire knew, but didn't judge. "Life is short, Eleanor," she said, "and you've spent enough of yours being someone's unpaid employee. Whatever you decide, make sure it's what you want, not what you think you're supposed to want. But guilt is a funny thing. It doesn't hit you all at once. It builds slowly, like water damage behind walls, until one day everything collapses. Mine collapsed during Sunday dinner with Marcus when he FaceTimed to check in and asked, "How are you and Dad doing? You both seem happier lately." Happier. Because I was barely home, because Thomas and I had stopped fighting, stopped trying, stopped everything. And my son thought that meant we were doing well. The weight of that misunderstanding nearly crushed me. Then, on a random Tuesday evening, everything exploded. I came home from class to find Thomas sitting at the kitchen table with a bottle of wine and tears on his face. Actual tears. In 38 years of marriage, I'd never seen him cry. "We need to talk," he said, and my blood turned to ice because I was certain he knew, certain I'd been caught, certain my entire life was about to detonate. I sat down across from him, preparing for judgment and rage. Instead, he said, "I had an affair. It lasted 2 years. It ended 3 months ago when she moved to New York for a job. And I've been trying to figure out how to tell you ever since." The room spun. 2 years, while I was being the faithful wife, the reliable partner, the woman who waited at home. He'd been with someone else for 2 years. And he was only telling me now because she'd left, not because he felt guilty, but because the affair had ended and now he wanted to rebuild what he'd destroyed. "Eleanor, I'm sorry," he continued, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but that thing, whatever it was, it made me realize what I had at home, what I'd been taking for granted. You, us, this marriage. I want to fight for it. I want to go to counseling. I want to remember why we fell in love in the first place. I sat there, numb, processing the sheer audacity of his confession. He'd betrayed me for 2 years, and now he wanted credit for ending it and coming back. He wanted me to be grateful. He wanted to rebuild our marriage now that his excitement had left town and he was stuck with the backup option. Me. Say something, Thomas pleaded. Please. I know this is a shock, but we can get through this. Other couples have survived worse. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and left without a word. I drove straight to Nathan's apartment, knocked on his door at 9:30 at night, and when he answered, looking confused and concerned, I fell into his arms and told him everything. Leave him, Nathan said immediately. Eleanor, this is your sign. He's been betraying you while you were being loyal. You don't owe him anything. Build a life with me. We can go anywhere, do anything. You can paint, travel, finally live on your own terms. And God, how I wanted that. How I wanted to walk away from 38 years of mediocrity and betrayal and build something new with a man who actually saw me. But it wasn't that simple. Because I have 3 children who adore their father. Because I have grandchildren who expect their grandparents to be together at holidays. Because 38 years of shared history doesn't just disappear because someone made a mistake, even if that mistake lasted 2 years. Because maybe, just maybe, Thomas's affair woke him up the same way Nathan woke me up, and we both needed to break before we could rebuild into something better. But also because Nathan represents everything I've been denied. Passion, creativity, recognition, desire. With him, I'm not just Thomas's wife or the kid's mother or someone's grandmother. I'm Eleanor, a woman with her own identity and dreams and value beyond what I provide for others. And I don't know if I can give that up, even for the sake of keeping my family intact. Make sure you subscribe, because I'm not done yet. And what I'm about to tell you will change how you think about this entire situation. Thomas has been trying. Over the past 3 weeks since his confession, he's actually been present. He asks about my day. He compliments my appearance. He suggested we take a trip together, just the 2 of us, to reconnect. He's booked a therapist for couples counseling starting next month. He's doing everything right, and it feels like too little, too late. Except maybe it's not. Maybe this is what people mean when they say marriage takes work, that you have to fight for it even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Meanwhile, Nathan keeps calling. He sends me paintings he's working on. He leaves voice messages saying he loves me, that he's willing to wait, but not forever, that I need to decide what kind of life I want to live. And he's right. I do need to decide. But how do you choose between security and passion, between duty and desire, between the life you built and the life you're just discovering? I'm 63 years old. Most people my age are retiring, settling into grandparenthood, accepting that the exciting parts of life are behind them. And here I am, standing at a crossroads, holding 2 phones, 2 futures, 2 versions of myself that can't coexist. If I stay with Thomas, I get my family intact. Thanksgiving dinners with all my children and grandchildren. The house I've lived in for decades, the financial security of a dual income and shared retirement accounts, the comfort of familiar routines and shared history, maybe even a renewed relationship if we both actually try. But I also get the woman I've been, the one who disappeared piece by piece, who exists to serve others, who never asks what she wants because what she wants has never mattered. If I leave for Nathan, I get passion and creativity and a partner who sees me as more than a function. I get to paint and explore and finally live authentically. I get to be Eleanor, just Eleanor, without qualifiers or roles or expectations I've been fulfilling for 40 years. But I also get the guilt of breaking apart my family. I get the judgment of people who think I'm selfish or having a midlife crisis 3 decades late. I get the uncertainty of starting over at an age when most people are afraid to change anything. Thomas doesn't know about Nathan. He thinks we're working on our marriage, that his confession cleared the air, that we're both committed to rebuilding. Our kids think we're reconciling. Rebecca called last week saying how happy she is that Dad finally woke up and realized what he has. They're planning to come home for Christmas, all of them, for a big family celebration of us getting back on track. And Nathan is waiting for an answer. He's been patient, but I can hear the edge in his voice during our calls. "I need to know, Eleanor," he said yesterday. "I need to know if you're choosing me or if I need to start letting you go. Because loving you while you're committed to someone else is killing me." So here I am, 63 years old, more confused than I've ever been in my life. The woman who always did the right thing, who followed the rules, who put everyone else first, suddenly faced with a choice that has no right answer. Because either way, someone gets hurt. Either way, I lose something essential. Either way, I'm the villain in someone's story. Thomas walked into the kitchen this morning while I was making coffee, wrapped his arms around me from behind, and said, "I love you, Eleanor. I know I haven't shown it in years, but I do. And I'm going to spend the rest of our lives proving it to you if you'll let me." And part of me wanted to melt into that embrace, to believe him, to choose the easy path of forgiveness and familiar comfort. But then my phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "I'm teaching a workshop in Seattle next month. Come with me. Let me show you what our life could look like. No pressure, just possibility." And part of me wanted to pack a bag and drive north and never look back. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I need all the perspectives I can get on what comes next. The truth is, I don't know what to do. I don't know if staying with Thomas makes me noble or stupid. I don't know if leaving for Nathan makes me brave or selfish. I don't know if there's a version of this where I choose myself without destroying everyone around me. I don't know if I'm entitled to happiness at the expense of stability, or if I'm supposed to sacrifice what I want for the sake of what everyone expects. What I do know is that I've spent 63 years being what other people needed. The good daughter, the dutiful wife, the devoted mother, the reliable grandmother. And somewhere in all those roles, I forgot to ask who Eleanor actually is when nobody's watching, when nobody needs anything, when it's just me and a blank canvas, and the rest of my life stretching out ahead. Thomas gave me 38 years of partnership, 3 children, a comfortable life, and eventually, brutal honesty about his own failures. He's asking for forgiveness and a second chance, and maybe people who've been married as long as we have owe each other that after everything we've survived together. Nathan gave me passion and creativity and the overwhelming sensation of being cherished. He's offering a future where I'm not invisible, where my art matters, where I'm someone's priority instead of someone's obligation. He's asking me to finally put myself first, and maybe at 63, I've earned that right. But here's what nobody tells you about crossroads like this. Every path leads somewhere beautiful and somewhere terrible. There's no perfect choice. There's no decision without consequences. There's just me, standing in my kitchen, holding 2 phones, trying to figure out which version of myself I can live with for however many years I have left. So I'm turning this over to you. I need you to tell me in the comments what you would do if you were me. Would you stay with the husband who betrayed you but wants to rebuild? Would you leave for the passionate connection that makes you feel alive? Would you try to have both somehow? Would you walk away from all of it and start completely fresh? Because I genuinely don't know, and I need to decide soon, and the weight of this choice is crushing me. If this story resonated with you at all, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because whatever I decide, I'll be back here to tell you how it turned out. Maybe by then, I'll know if I made the right choice, or maybe I'll just know I made a choice, and that has to be enough. They asked me what changed at 63. Everything, I told them. Everything came in. My husband's confession, Nathan's love, the art I'd buried for decades, the woman I'd forgotten I could be. It all came in at once. And now I have to figure out what to do with it, what to keep, and what to let go, knowing that whatever I choose will define the rest of my life. So tell me, please, what would you do in my place? Because I'm standing here with two futures in my hands, and I honestly can't figure out which one I want more, which one I deserve, or which one will hurt the least when I finally choose. The clock is ticking. Thomas expects an answer about couples therapy. Nathan expects an answer about Seattle. My children expect their parents to be together at Christmas. And I expect, for once in my 63 years, to make a decision based on what I actually want instead of what everyone else needs. But I don't know what I want. Or maybe I want both. Or maybe I want neither, and I'm just too afraid to admit it. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you want to know how this ends. And send me your wisdom, your experience, your brutal honesty about what you think I should do, because I've never needed outside perspective more than I do right now. What would you do? What would you choose? And how would you live with yourself afterward? I'm waiting for your answers, because mine are nowhere to be found.